All right, let's take a quick look at UV layouts. Selecting this character right here, going under UV editor, you can see that within the same quadrant, that means within the same texture, all these parts fit. And even though this object is made out of multiple 3D objects, this gives you a great way when doing objects for games to be able to pack everything into one texture map, which makes things a lot more efficient than having multiple texture maps. And also, if you're not doing games, you're just doing artwork, to bring in this one texture map into Photoshop and just do variations using color curves to affect everything at once. Let's say I have this object right here and here. You can see these two objects. If I assign a spherical to this head under modeling, UV spherical, see that's going to take over everything. And then you have to scale into position. But instead of scaling into position, there's a much more efficient way. Just select your whole object. You can see all your UV layouts here for your whole object. And now go under Modify, Layout, and you can open up the Properties box. And that gives you access to the padding between the UV shells and the bounding corners. I'm just going to use what's here and hit Apply. And just give it a moment. It's going to relay out these UVs into that quadrant. And now you can see the head fits nicely within the quadrant next to the other parts as well. And if you need to manipulate something, you need to move things over because you might see some overlapping happening that wasn't caught, just go to UV shell, select the shell that you want to move, press the W key for move, and you could just move it wherever you need to. Now your character is all ready to be painted up with one texture map controlling everything. I'm going to delete this cube in Blender, which could be Shift X return if you don't have that extra delete key. Import the object. And to get started painting, let's say you could select any part. I'm going to select this part. Go right here to the material properties. For the base color, click on the input right there. Select image texture. And you could create a new image texture. So click the new button. Prefer. Select the resolution of this image. 1024 by 1024 is good. What's even better is 2048 by 2048. Get a little extra resolution in there. I'm not going to have any alpha in there, and click on OK. To start painting, jump to, with this object selected, jump to Texture Paint. First time you're going to have to zoom right in again. And let's just get started by flooding a color. Click there. Now you can pick up the paintbrush. And with the paintbrush selected, if you need to change the size of the paintbrush, F key, and then drag left and right for the size. Shift F is the magnitude, opacity of that brush. So F key, make it a little smaller. Orbit around your object, middle mouse button is orbiting. Shift and middle mouse button will pan over. And just draw out, I don't know, that little marshmallow patch. Like a tuxedo cat, but different color. All right, you painted that. The process then is to go up here under Texture Paint. This window, you see an asterisk right here. Click here and click on Save As and give it a name. Critter Fur is a good name. All right, when it's time to paint up here, just jump to the layout and click here. Now you can jump back to texture painting and maybe you'll just, maybe it's a cat in a spacesuit, something like that. Whatever inspires you today. You want to have color swatches. Let's say, let me pick my original pink color right here, my magenta color. If you click under color palette, new palette, and plus, it's going to dump that swatch there in case you want to pick it up again. And that could be the start of it. You could go back with another brush. now I'm inspired to do a different type of cat. No worries. Let's just jump back to layout, select this body part, and I'll show you how to do the ears together. Back to texture painting, going to use flood. The color I want flood is black. This could be enough for our cat, but it's not. All right, ears. Now, if you're going to be really just using this painting for painting, you could just join these two objects, select them both, pressing Control J to join. And this way you don't have to paint them separately. They'll show up as one object. Now joining, can't undo joining. Well, you can on the vertex level, but it's a little pain. So if you just see this as the place where you paint your texture map and then import your texture map back to your original model, no harm in joining ears or body parts together. You could have joined these two and the head at the same time if you want it, and the body if you want the freedom to go back and forth. If you want that quick freedom of painting. Let me show you. Now that both ears are joined, if I go back to texturing, and let me pick up for my colors, let me pick up red. Actually, pick up a paintbrush first. Go to red. So now I can paint one ear, F key. And of course, spend a lot of time decorating your object the way you want it to be. I'm just going through the basic steps. We're in Maya, set up the UVs. Now you're in Blender, and here's where joining comes in handy. I don't have to jump out to select that object in order to paint on it. Now that I'm zoomed in, see how blurry those eyes are. Going back to layout, selecting the head, going to texture paint, pick up black, and with a much smaller brush, go around the contours. Just go around the edges. Now, this is also something I would do in Photoshop. Knowing where the eyes are, I would just do a shape around the eyes in Photoshop. A nice vector shape that could be just imported from Illustrator or one that you get from Photoshop itself to make sharp edges. And I'll jump to Photoshop right after this step just to show you that. Okay, here you are in Photoshop. Now, because of UV mapping, even though things could look okay here, because of those UVs, they might look a little distorted. So by painting out your texture map, you have a good spot to see within Photoshop where to put your vectors. Let me go to Illustrator real quick, and then I'll use just scaling to make it correct in the next application. So if that's going to be the outside of the eye, and this will be the inside of the eye, I'm going to select the outside, make it a little thicker, say 4 points. I did have a color. Color is there just for demo purposes, but why not just continue with it? Let me switch my document mode to RGB. That way I don't get that muddy color of CMYK-ness. Something bright, something that will scare you at night. You come across Ninja Cat. Select black on the inside. You can add those little fun details. Highlights. Make that here, like this. So have a lot of fun when you do this step. I'm going to select this eye, copy it, jump to Photoshop, paste it as a smart object. This way, you're not going to lose any resolution when scaling. So remember, we're looking at this from a side point of view because that's the way UVs are laid out. You rotate this into position. Go down the Shift key to do a little ununiformed scaling on it. There's eye number 1. Here I'm just showing you something quick. If you want this highlight to be on the other side, hold down the Shift key and just drag and flip to that side. All right, now I have nice crisp lines for this area. So I was using my paint really as a placeholder for my graphic that I'll add in later on. I'm going to save this out, File, Export, Save for Web. And I'm just going to give it a new name. This way we can do a side-by-side comparison. Jumping back to Blender now. Let's see our critter fur with the updated graphic here. Under Texture Paint, since that's where I left off, go to Image, Open, select Critter Fur 2, the one we just did. And you might have to jump away. See, it's updated here. It's not updated to view in the viewport yet. That's okay. Just go to your layout mode and jump back to Texture Paint. That's okay. Just click off and click back on again, these toggles, and nothing happens. To Critter Fur 2. The better the UVs are starting here, you can see that affects everything in your production, so take some time with your UVs. And you can always eyeball it by going to Photoshop and using what you paint out as placeholders. It's better when the UVs are flat. And then you could continue painting your critter. Like if you don't like how it looks here, and you want it a little more round. Once the graphics are in place, you could just continue painting or save that for your last step. Make sure you jump back up here so you can pick your colors. You could just round out any rough spots. So as you paint it on a more global level, zoomed out, good idea to go back, zoom in with a smaller brush, and just clean up those blurry pixels like this. And I can add that color here. Add black to there. Now that I'm painting with black, you could just run black at the edge to start to clean up those blurry lines. Or maybe you want to do this in Photoshop. Usually good to try to get as much as possible done here. I'm going to be at this for a little while, so I hope you have fun doing your very own.